guys, thanks for joining me on what is the very first episode of my new YouTube channel, Bits with Butler. This channel is going to be a source of information for you guys. I'm going to share health and fitness related topics. We'll look at food, we'll look at training, we'll look at the whole spectrum. I want to be able to provide you guys with some information that you can go away and apply to your own lives and hopefully make the progression that you're after. We're going to jump straight on episode 1 today and we're going to talk about calories. Calories is a really hot topic. We're all just coming out of a Christmas period. Probably, if you're like me, you might have put on a pound or two and you want to know the best way to shift that. So today I'm going to explain to you with a very simple equation how you can look at what calories you require as an individual based on your lifestyle, and then what nutrients you need to eat in order to make up those calories. So grab a pen and paper and let's get started. So let's start by looking what a calorie actually is. So a calorie is a unit of measuring energy. That's the energy that we get from food and drink, and it's the energy that we need in order to carry out every basic human function we've got. Eating, digesting, walking, breathing, even sleeping. So in 1919, a gentleman called Harris Benedict worked out a theory, the BMR theory. Now it's been progressed since then, 70 or so years later to where it is now. The last reissue of it was around the 90s, I believe. And it's at a point now where it's more accurate than ever. In order to calculate a BMR, which is defined as the rate at which human beings use calories for everyday bodily functions during rest. If you were to lie in bed all day, do nothing but sleep, this is how many calories potentially you would require just to maintain your body weight. So in order to calculate your BMR, you're going to need 3 pieces of information. You're going to need your age in years, your height in centimetres, and your body weight in kilograms. So if you haven't got those things now, write them down because you're going to need them for this equation. So BMR, or basal metabolic rate. The BMR system is designed under the assumption that you fit into the BMI scale. Google the BMI scale, that's the body mass index. That you fit into the BMI scale under normal or overweight, because that's the most average place to be. If you fall on either end of the scale at either underweight or obese, then this scale may not be as accurate as we'd like it to be for you. So in those instances, I suggest you talk to either your doctor, a nutritionist, or a personal trainer. We'll be able to put together a calorie plan for you that's better suited for your requirements. So we've got the equation ready. I've told you that you need your age in years, your height in centimetres, and your weight in kilograms. Let's go ahead and fill this out with my personal information, follow along with your own, and let's try and figure these numbers out. So I'm going to start with 10 times my body weight in kilograms, which currently is 100 kilograms. We're going to add that to 6.25 times my height in centimetres. And at 5'10"-ish, I'm somewhere around 177 centimetres. We're then going to subtract from that 5 times my age in years, which is 28. I'm not a young whippersnapper anymore. And then finally, as part of that equation, for a male, you will plus 5. And for a female, you'll minus 161. So I've already worked this sum out for myself, and I know that for me, that gives me a number of 1,977.5. That is my BMR. That is the amount of calories that this equation suggests I require if I'm to do nothing but rest. Now I know that number, I need to take into account my activity level, my output. How much activity am I doing outside of my rest window that's also using calories? Because that's really important. So let's move on to that. Now that we know how many calories you require for your BMR, we also need to look into the additional calories that you require for your activity level, your output. So everything outside of those bodily functions that we mentioned. Now, you need to be really honest with yourself at this phase, because if you suggest that you're more active than you actually are, you'll get a higher number of calories to eat. If you aren't that active and that's too many, there's a chance that you might gain weight. Other side of the coin, you go in too low and say that you are less active than you actually are, you're going to create a bigger calorie deficit and you may lose weight, potentially at a faster rate than you want to. So try and be honest with yourself at this point. We've got 3 different people, okay? And that equates to 3 different numbers. We've got person low, person medium, and person high. So, activity levels. Person low potentially does as I'm doing now, sits down all day, office worker, receptionist, something like that. Low activity outside of work as well. Maybe there's a tiny bit of walking, maybe they go to the gym once or twice a week. That person is going to times their BMR calories by 1.53 to give them their overall calorie requirements. Person B, medium output. This person potentially does a little bit of walking around while they're at work. Maybe they walk to and from work. Let's say they go to the gym 4 to 5 times a week for an hour or so at a time. Or not necessarily the gym, but an exercise, an output 4 to 5 times a week. Okay, that person is going to times their BMR calories by 1.76. And now we've got the third person. This person is really active. They're on their feet all the time. Let's say they're something like a nurse, or they work in, construction, something like that. So they're really active. Maybe they do an activity every single day, or 5+ times a week. Dog walker, for example. Well, that person is going to need more calories just to maintain their weight, because they're going to be burning more calories through those activities. So they're going to multiply their BMR by 2.25. Now, me personally, I work an office job alongside my personal training. I go to the gym 4 times a week. I also do cardio bits and bobs on my days off. So I would suggest that I personally have a medium activity output level, which for me means I need to multiply my BMR calories by 1.76. I've done the sums already. This means I need a total calorie requirement of 3,480 calories. Now I know how many calories I require, I need to think about the direction I'm trying to currently take my physique. If I'm trying to maintain body weight, I'm just going to eat that many calories every day. If I'm trying to put weight on, I'm trying to build muscle or gain size, I'm going to add an additional, I would say between 300 and 500 calories every day to that allowance to put me in a surplus by the end of a week, which should in turn lead to a calorie surplus and should lead to growth, to more muscle, more size. Now, go by the same key here. If you're a person with low activity level, add 300. If you've got medium activity, try 400 calories a day. And if you've got high activity, try 500 calories a day onto that allowance and just watch what happens to your body in the mirror and on the scales. If you're somebody like me who right now is trying to cut up a little bit and get a little bit leaner, then we need a calorie deficit. We need to try and be under this number every day in order to try and lose that body weight. So as a rule of thumb, if you can equate a calorie deficit of around 3,500 calories or so per week, scientifically they suggest that should lead to around 1 pound of body weight loss per week. So the best way to do that is going to be to take between 300 and 500 calories off of your calorie allowance per day to try and get into that marker. So why is it 300 to 500 calories less to make your total calorie requirement? Because let's not forget about my output. I don't need to just sacrifice my calories from food. If I was to increase my output at the same time, then my calorie deficit is going to be greater by the end of the week. So I don't just have to take my 500 calories a day from food. So I shoot for around 300 calories from food, which, when I deduct that from my overall daily allowance, it gives me a total of 3,180 calories. That, based on this theory, is how many calories I need to eat from food every day with my current output level to be in a calorie deficit by the end of the week, great enough that should lead to a loss of £1 or so per week, which is considered a very healthy weight loss per week. Now I know how many calories I need, we can start delving into what nutrients we're going to get those calories from and what food sources we're going to have to use. Let's have a look. Now I've got my overall calorie requirement, I'm going to show you how to break that down and work out how many nutrients you require from these three macronutrients that I've got up here. So the nutrients are protein, carbohydrates and fats. I'm sure you're familiar with them, but just in case you're not. Protein is things like animal meats, it's things like fish, it's dairy, it's eggs, it's whey protein, things like that. They contain these products called amino acids, which are really the building blocks of protein. A diet high in protein is needed to repair muscle tissue, which is damaged through exercise, and to grow. Now also the digestion of protein burns a lot of calories. So if you're trying to lose weight or gain weight, I do suggest that you have a diet that has a high number of protein foods within it. Next up we've got carbs. Everyone knows what carbs are, they're everyone's favourites. They also make you fat, right? Not necessarily. Carbohydrates are everything from your rice to potatoes to pasta, breads, cereals, things like that. Now, as a rule of thumb, if you stick to your whole grain and whole wheat sources, they're going to digest a little bit slower. They also contain more fibre, both of which are going to help you when it comes to losing weight. Last but not least, we've got fats. Fats are essential for hormone production. For men and women, testosterone. That's going to help burn more calories. It's going to help build more muscle. It's going to help you feel stronger in the gym. That's going to be things like your eggs, avocados, olive oil, coconut oil, things like that. Nuts. Those are the sorts of foods that we're going to need to be eating. Now, to work out how many nutrients we need from each of those food sources, we first need to look into breaking down our overall calorie requirements into percentages. We'll start with protein because this is, like I've said, the most important one when it comes to progressing your physique in the way that you want. So I make a suggestion for most of my clients and for myself that we have a protein content in our diet of around 40%. Let me show you how to work that out. So in order to get 40% of your calories from protein, you just need to times your overall calorie requirements by 0.4, which will give you 40% of that number. So for me, 40% of my calories comes to 1,272. So that's how many calories I'm going to need to get just from protein, okay? For carbohydrates, I like to have around 35% of my calories from carbohydrates. I feel like that's low enough that I'm still able to use energy stores. I'm not just relying on my food for energy. So I'm going to times my number by 0.35, which means I need 1,113 calories from carbohydrates. And finally, fats. I personally like a relatively low fat diet, but you need to experiment with this and find out what works for you and what works for your body. So I like 25% of my calories from fat, which means I'm going to times my calorie requirements by 0.25 and get 795 calories from fat. Now that's just the calories. How many grams of each of those nutrients does that equate to? Well, this is how you find out. So here's a fact that I'd like you to know. Protein and carbohydrates, per 1 gram, they contain 4 calories. And fat, per 1 gram, contains 9 calories. So if we take the calories that we know that we need and divide it by that number, that's going to tell us exactly how many grams that equates to and how many grams we need to be shooting for each day. So if I divide my protein and my carb calorie requirements by 4, I need to eat 318 grams of protein a day and 278 grams of carbs a day. Now I divide my fat calories by 9, I need to eat 88 grams of protein a day. So with these two equations that we've gone through, we've worked out how many calories we need at rest, how many calories we need to add to that when we are looking into our activity level and our output. What we then do with those calories based on the direction we're trying to take our body. Then we can break it down again based on goals as to how many calories we need from each macronutrient source, and then how many grams of those macronutrients that equates to. Once you've got those numbers, you're at a great position to start using something like MyFitnessPal, a dieting app. You can enter in your foods, scan in your foods by the barcodes that you like to eat, and you can calculate how many grams of protein, carbs and fats are in those foods to try and meet your newfound requirements. Do your best to eat to those requirements, keep the activity and the exercise levels high, and you should see your body move in the direction that you want. Now, it's only a theory. A lot of it comes down to execution. The harder you try in the gym, potentially the more calories you can burn. Knowing that you go in there every day and give it your all is definitely going to help. Be as consistent as possible with the food. Drink plenty of water. These things are definitely going to help. That's it, guys. If you feel like you've learned something today, I'd really appreciate a like on the video. If you want to continue learning stuff going forward, why don't you subscribe to the channel? I'm going to try and release more videos. I'm going to aim for one a week. Drop something in the comments if there's something specifically that you'd like to see. Otherwise, I'm just going to go ahead and put out content each week for you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. This has been episode 1 of Bits with Butler. Thank you.